No, I said many thanks to all of you for coming and for all of your support for the Grolier over the years. And without you, really, the dream fails. And since 1927 and for 85 years, I think there's reason enough to celebrate a little bit. And so let me thank you again and thank the Oberon. Thank Jim Vrabel and Harris Gardner, who will be hosting an open mic afterwards. And especially also to thank Carol, my wife, and Elizabeth for all the hard work they've been doing. Yeah. You know, Berryman was one of a kind, you know. In fact, I think here in the audience are some of his former students from the University of Minnesota. I ran into one or two people, and that's the nature of poetry, you know. It's like the sense that despite the tumult and agitations of all our days, this thing still lives. They say that the Marines always arrive, but then when they do not, there's still this mysterious amulet called poetry to bring us home. And I don't want to take up too much of your time, but again, to say welcome, and we appreciate all the support you've given us over the years, and we hope you continue to support us. And I don't want to take any more time of Henry's precious time, because
Excuse me! Excuse me! A word before we start. Excuse me? Off. Now then. Thank you. Thank you. It is idle to reply to critics. But some of the people who addressed themselves to the 77 Dream songs went so desperately astray. One apologized in print, but whoever sees apologies, that I permit myself one word. The poem you are about to hear and see this evening, whatever its wide cast of characters, is essentially about an imaginary character, not the poet, not me, named Henry. A white American in late middle age who has suffered an irreversible loss and who talks about himself sometimes in the first person, sometimes in the third, sometimes even in the second. These songs are not meant to be understood, you understand. They are only meant to terrify and comfort. Well then, that's about all you need to know. Requiescat in pace. For those of you who have allowed your Latin to lapse, let's pretend that means on with the show. Huffy Henry hid the day. Unappeasable Henry sulked. I see his point. A trying to put things over. It was the thought that they thought they could do it made Henry wicked and away. But he should have come out and talked. All the world, like a woolen lover, once did seem on Henry's side. Then came a departure. Thereafter, nothing fell out as it might or ought. I don't see how Henry, pried open for the world to see, survived. What he has now to say is a long wonder that the world can bear and be. Once, in a sycamore, I was glad all at the top, and I sang. Hard on the land wails the strong sea, and empty grows every bed. Deciding, despite an inclination otherwise, all right, I'll stay. The hell with the true Nell. Henry had a living to fail. He stood perplexed as to where to go next. Collating bones I would have liked to do. Henry would have been hot at that. I missed his profession. As a young boy, I always thought, I'm an archaeologist. Who could be more respected, peaceful, serious than that? A Chinese tooth, African jaw, drool, says a nervous system, for a joyous replacing. Heat burns off dew between the ices in a world I ever saw. Some of my dying people indexed warm. Alas, hell talked my brain awake, bluffed to the ends of me pain, and I picked up a pencil, like this I'm lying with. One sign would snow me back. Is there anyone in the audience who has lived in vain? You, sir. Madam? Volunteers? Eschewing bones, Henry chose the cruelty of scholarship instead. Spent dangles of his life at colleges. I headed for respect. I picked the wrong field. I think the elder statesman's stance will do. I will wear my bearded difference with rue before the damned young things, flashy for knowledge of they dream not what. Sick at 6 and sick again at 9 was Henry's gloomy Monday morning. Oh, still, he had to lecture. They waited, his little children, for stricken Henry to rise up yet once more again and come. Oh, they thought he was a fixture. Nuts to their bolts, keys to their bloody locks. One day the whole affair will come apart in a rustle of fire, a wrestle of undoing as of tossed clocks, and somewhere, not far off, a broken heart for hire. He had smoked a pack of cigarettes by 10 and was ready to go. Peace to poor Henry's ashes then, with all the gas and shit blowing through it. 4 times in 2 hours his tail ached. He arose, benign, and performed. Blah, 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 blah. I can't take any more of this rich, critical prose, he growled. scratched himself, broke wind, and left that fragrant area. When the mind dies, it exudes rich critical prose. Forget the text. That can't be what brought you here. Why not say what you expect to gain from this palaver? What Henry is expected to deliver. Write? You want to write. Let me tell you what the life was like. Bards freezing, naked, up to their necks in water, holy and dark, time limited, different from initiations now. The class in writing, clothed and dry and light, unlimited time, till poetry takes some. No one reads them, though. No trumpets, no solemn instaurations, no change, no commissions, ladies' high and soulful praise, pal, none. Costumes as usual, turtleneck sweaters, loafers, in and among the many who braze, art is, if anything, fun. The best, you ask. Here Henry has been lucky. Fortune gave him to know the flaming best, expressions kings of his time by voice and hand. The Irishman, the doomed bard roaring down the thirsty west, the subtle American, British banker man, the lunatic fidgeting with bananas, and his friend the sage, touchy, I'm very touchy, in his cabin 2 miles from mine here. Already then, let's call it a strong age, and not a science age, as idiot habit cries. I'm coming to an end, but I add on the Bostonian, rugged, grand, and sorrowful. That's 6, and that's enough. Henry, as I was muttering, knew them man by man. Much good it did him in his fix, except for letting out love. Oh, what's that? What about the women? Don't forget the ladies, as Abigail was wont to say. Them lady poets must not marry, pal. Miss Dickinson? Fancy an Amherst bedding her. Fancy a lark with Sappho. A tumble in the bushes with Miss Moore. A spoon with Emily while Charlotte glare. Miss Bishop's too noble, oh. That's the lot. And 2 of them are here as yet. And Sylvia Plath is not. She her credentials has handed in, leaving alone 2 tots and widower to what he makes of it. It is a true error to marry with poets or to be by them. I loathe this wisdom Henry gives of. Help? Yes, to the attentive few, who only at 20 into each other's arms would care to be confided, but do not dare, and who are neither men nor not, nor women not, and 60 do not care, and they are bored by the electrifying air, and the dawn, and the thunderclaps, and I am bored. Almost always. But that's a lie. For when morale was low, Henry's temptations oft ran high. All the girls, with their vivacious littles, visited him in dream. He was interested in their tops, and their bottoms, and even in their middles. All this applause, young beauties sitting at my feet, and all, it tires me out, he pondered. I'm tempted to break laws and love myself. Well, the foolish questions asked moved me to homicide. So many beauties, one on either side. The wall behind me into which I crawl out of my repeating voice. The mic falls down. The foolish askers fall all over themselves in an audience of ashes and waited while he hid behind the wall and all. About that me. After a lecture once, came up a young lady asking to see me. Of course, when would you like to? Well, now, she said. Yes, but I have a lunch. Chun. And I saw her and shifted with remorse. All right then, come on over, I said. So we crossed to my office together and I sat her down. And as she sat silent, asked her, "What is it, miss? Would you close the door?" Now Henry was perplexed. We don't close doors with students. It's a principle. But this lady looked beyond frown. So I rose from my chair and closed it. And turning back, found her in tears, apologizing. "No, go ahead," I assured her. "There's a handkerchief. Cry." She did. I did. When she got control, I said, "What's the matter, if you want to talk?" "Nothing. Nothing's the matter." So, I am her. And yet, despite it all, he worked. The heat made headlines while he lectured on, drenched, able at this deep point to carry out my duties. I lecture, I write, I even lecture well. I threw 2 chairs the janitors had piled on the podium onto the floor of the lecture hall. The students were amazed. It was good for them. Action in the midst of thought. An angry Zen touch. Something not written down, except in the diaries of the unknown devoted ones of the 115. Master Henry is approaching his limit. A little more whiskey, please. If the classroom was hard to bear, the politics sheer torture. The old joke, the stakes so low. The parties hardly better. I met a junior, not so junior, who knew him, them, slightly long ago, whom I know. It was the usual cocktail party. I sloshed out another whiskey. Strangely needed. We spoke of indifferent matters. God's health, the vague hell of the Congo, John's energy, antimatter matter. I felt fine. Then a change came backward. A chill fell. Talk slackened, died, and he began to give me sideways looks. Christ, I thought, what now? And would gladly have ordered another, but didn't dare. I feel my application failing. It's growing darker. Another sound is overcoming. His last words are, "We betrayed me." Hey, out there. assistant professors, full, associates, instructors, others any. I have a sing to say. We are assembled here in the capital city for Dull, and one professor's wife is Mary at Christmastide. Hey! And all of you did theses and are doing, and the moral history of what we were up to thrives in Sir Wilson's hands, who I don't see here. Only deals go screwing. Some of you out, some of you up. Even the chairman are nervous little friends. The chairman's not a chairman's son forever, and hurts with his appointments. But circle, take my word for it, though maybe Frost is dying, around Mary. Forget your footnotes on the old gentleman. Dance around Mary. There was one benefit to the thinky life. For Henry James, the two most beautiful words in English were summer afternoon. For Henry, one long one from the Latin would do. Sabbatical. Henry wandered west, south, north, and east, sometimes for money, sometimes for relief, sometimes of pure fatigue, sometimes a stroller through the mental feast found him at Schweitzigen or Avila or the Black Hills of Dakota, found him in bizarre Tangier or outside Dublin or inside the Palais du Pape at Avignon, where a guide suddenly sang to show off the acoustics. But mostly, travel is missing by a narrow margin, things desired. Once a dinner fellow guest and I reckoned up merely what each had missed in his months in India. Together, we made the whole subcontinent sigh. And we got around. I can't say it improved him, until, tired of places where holiness held forth, he tucked tail twixt legs and slunk back to his north, and hid back in his shell. Oh. Married life is a boat, forever dubious with the bilge stale. So Henry in twilight is in his own, bailing, swabbing, childing, shelling taxes, pondering, making. It's rained all day. His wife had been away. With genuine difficulty, he fought madness, whose breast came close to breaking. It's getting hard to get up in the morning, especially since the mail doesn't come until noon. I've heard Togo's postal service is better. So was the town in Oakeyland when I was young. 3 and 4 deliveries a day. By day, Oklahoma, sore from my great loss, leaves me. but returns to fill too many of poor Henry's nights. I stand above my father's grave with rage. I've made this awful pilgrimage to one who cannot visit me, who tore his page out. I come back for more. I spit on this dreadful banker's grave, who shot his heart out in a summer dawn. Oh, alas, alas, when will indifference come? I moan and rave, I'd like to scrabble until I get right down, away down under the grass, and axe the casket open. Ha! To see just how he's taking it which he sought so hard. We'll tear apart the mouldery grave clothes. Ha! Then Henry will heft the axe once more, his final card, and fell it on the start. Alas, I love him. I cannot read this wretched mind so strong and so undone. I've always tried. I'm trying to forgive, whose frantic passage, when he could not live an instant longer in the summer dawn, left Henry to live on. Throng the fates. He couldn't care less. Being in love with his own teeming lady. Wait till that kid comes out. I'll burp her till she bleeds. I'll take an axe to her inability to focus until in one weird moment I fall in love with her too. Oh, the baby has had 1,013,000 falls. No wonder she howls. She'll trip on the steps of Vassar, hoe, and ball in Latin. This baby has got to learn things. We'll see her through Smith, then swiftly into the Senate. Daddy by then will be the nearest ghost, honey, but won't return. Daddy's heart sank at having to leave the lovely baby. The poor little twists. Your mommy will be with you when Henry's a blank. You'll have to study him at school at most. Troubled and gone, Henry. Turning it over, considering it like a madman, Henry put forth a book. No harm resulted in this. Neither the menstruating stars nor man was moved at once. Bare dogs drew closer for a second look. As he became famous, but what is fame? He lost his old obsession with his name. Things seemed to matter less, including the fame. A television team came from a foreign country to make a film of him, which did not him distress. But where are the delights of longed-for fame unless fame make him feel easy? Why does the rehearsal of the public events of his life strike him as a list of failures, pal? Where is childhood from which he recovered? And where are the moments of love? A lone letter from a young man. That is fame. The high ones die. They die. You look up and who's left? And with them all, again and again, I died and cried, and I have to live. His malice was like a pimple on his good big face with its sly eyes. I must be sorry Mr. Frost has left. I feel so less I don't understood. He couldn't see or hear very well. All we sift. But that is a bad story. He had fine stories and was another man in private. Difficult always, courteous on the whole in private. He apologized to Henry off and on for 2 blue slanders, which was good of him. I don't see how he made it. Quickly then, off stage with all but kindness now, I can't say what I mean. Bless Frost, any odd god around. Gentle his shift, I decussate and command stoic deity. For a while here, we possessed an unusual man. Wallace Stevens lifted up a grandee crow among the actuaries. Aha, he crowed good, that funny money man. Mutter we all must, as well as we can. He mutter spiffy. He make wonder Henry's wits, though with an odd something not there in his flourishing art. O veteran of death, you will not mind a counter mutter? What was it missing at the man's heart that he did not wound? It is our kind to wound, as well as utter. A fact of happy world. That metaphysics he hefted up until we could not breathe the physics. On our side, monotonous or ever fresh. It sticks in Henry's throat to judge. Brilliant, he seethed. Better than us. Less wide. Memo from Henry to Bill, underground. Rest well, who worked so hard, who made a good sound constantly for so many years. Your hijinks delighted the continents and our ears. You had so many girls, your life was a triumph, and you loved your one wife. At dawn, you rose and wrote. The books poured forth. You delivered infinite babies in one great birth. And your generosity to your juniors was deeply loved. Deeply. If envy was a Henry trait, he would envy you, especially the being through. Too many journeys lie for him ahead. Too many galleys and page proofs to be read. He would like to lie down in your sweet silence, to whom is not denied that mysterious late excellence that is the crown of our trials, and our last bride. Does then our rivalry extend beyond your death, Randall? Our lovely, friendly rivalry over a quarter century? One of my students gives me, late, a long paper on one of your poems which I barely can stand for excellence and loss. When worst it got, you went away, I charge you, and we will wonder over this in hell, if the circles communicate. I stayed here. It's changing from blue to blue, but you would be wrapped in gold hues. Well, you went like Pierre to another fate. I never changed. My desire for death was strong, but never strong enough. I thought, this is my chance. I can bear it. I'm not a Buddhist. I studied the text long, the high texts. Come hunt me, ancient friend, and tell me I am wrong. This world is gradually becoming a place where I do not care to be anymore. Can Delmore die? I don't suppose in all them years ever a day went by without a loving thought for him. Well, a day, in the brightness of his promise, unstained, I saw him through the mist of the actual, blazing with insight and warm with gossip through all our Harvard years when both of us were just becoming known. I got him out of a police station once in Washington. The world is treff, and grief to astray for tears. I imagine you've heard the terrible news that Delmore Schwartz is dead, miserably and alone in New York. He sang me a song once. I am the Brooklyn poet, Delmore Schwartz. Harms in the child I sing, two parents' torts. When he was young and gift strong. Your face broods up at me from my table. Suicide. Your force came on in the end like a torrent of agony and wrath. You were christened in the beginning Sylvia Plath, and changed that name to Mrs. Hughes, and bred and went on round the bend until the oven seemed the proper place for you. I brood upon your face a geography of grief, hooded until I allow your resignation from us now. Your torment here was brief. Long your exit falls, all repeatingly, a poor exemplum, one more suicide to stack upon the others until stricken Henry, with his sisters and brothers suddenly gone, pauses to wonder why he alone breasts the wronging tide. Life, friends, is boring. We must not say so. After all, the sky flashes, the great sea yearns. We ourselves flash and yearn. And moreover, my mother told me as a boy repeatedly, ever to confess you're bored means you have no inner resources. I conclude I have no inner resources because I am heavy bored. Peoples bore me. Literature bores me, especially great literature. Henry bores me with his plights and gripes, as bad as Achilles, who loves people and valiant art, which bores me. And the tranquil hills and gin look like a drag. And somehow a dog has taken itself and its tail considerably away into mountains or sea or sky, leaving behind me Wag. The secret is not praise. It's just being accepted at something like the figure where you put your worth anywhere on the bloody earth. We must keep our spirits up anyhow. Of course, praise is nice too, particularly when it comes to a stop. When it comes to a stop, so one can say, yes, that happened. It's not so good while going on. An element of incredulity enters and dominates. The shadows of the gray ash on my page. I can't get out of this to either youth or age. I'm stuck with middle. A large work largely done over the years. The prizes mostly won. We work now for ourselves alone, knowing only all will be as before when we sought eminence and were dissatisfied with that and wanted more. I always wanted to be old. I always wanted to be able to say, oh, I haven't read that in 15 years. Or, my copy of that seems in the usual course to have gone astray. Or, she, that woman, moved me to young tears, even Henry Catt. But now that the moment is mine, I find I love it not. Base envy of the very young afflicts me. Contempt and border, but envy. I just came on my notes for an old play. Over 50 volumes I read from Widener. Thought that would now turn me gray, roiled my burning brain. Connolly and Peirce, my hero martyrs. Over 50 volumes stamped down in lime. Their triumph needs a man younger in rhyme. Reservationless. Unfeeling for the worse. A young man with 3 rooks. His hours of thought grew longer, his study less. He called on old codes and new apperceptions. He fought off in anxiety attack as the Lord did nations, with brutal commitments, not clever. He stared at ruin Ruin stared straight back. They was old friends. Almost he lost interest in the 14 books part done in favor of insights fresh, a laziness in the sun, rapid sketchings, a violent level on the drop of friendship. His gift receded. He could write no more. Be silent then until the thing returns, mused Henry, moved to declare, I am picked up and sorted to a pip, sleepless and yet beset by dreams. In one dream, I saw the great lost cities, Machu Picchu, Angkor, Cambridge, Mass. I wonder if it's raining on Machu Picchu, Angkor, Cambridge, as here. The terrace is alive in magical rain, the dead all in their places, all insane, and trying to sit up from fear. I saw it all. The peopled terraces, as once I suppose they were, as we are, the peopled terraces. Slaves winding in and out, paying no income tax, mostly brutal, one to another. I saw it all. Baseball and the utter bloody fucking news converged upon miserable Henry. Brother, they did. Then how did Henry make itself of use? Apart, I mean, from these nuclear devices, H and A. Henry hid. A shallow lake with many water birds. I am showing Mother around. An extraordinarily vivid dream of Betty and Douglas and Dawn. Dawn's mother's estate was on the grounds of a lunatic asylum. He showed me around. A policeman trundled a siren up the walk. It was 6:05 p.m. Dawn was late home. I asked if he ever saw the inmates. Oh no, they never leave their cells. Betty was downstairs. Dawn called down, a drink while showering. I can't go into the meaning of the dream, except to say that a sense of total loss afflicted me thereof. An absolute disappearance of continuity and love, of children away at school, the weight of the cross, and everything is what it seems. It was wet and white and swift, and where I am we don't know. It was dark, and then it isn't. I wish the barker would come. There seems to be to eat nothing. I'm unusually tired. I'm alone, too. If the strange one with so few legs would come, I would say my prayers out of my mouth as usual. Where are his notes I loved? The barker nips me, but I feel he too is on my side. I'm too alone. I see no end. If we could all run, even that would be better. I am hungry. The sun is not hot. It is not a good position I am in. If I had the whole thing to do over again, I wouldn't. Madness and booze. Madness and booze. Which'll can tell who's preceded whose? Not the sober doctors, or the nurses, pretty as you will, who on his bed put up guardrails as if it were a crib. He was as ill as well as one can be ill. How are you? Fine, fine. I have tears unshed. There is here, near the bottom of my chest, a loop of cold on the right. A thing hurts up left on my head. I have a gang of old sins I shovel out of sight. And many things else I might mention too, such as her leaving, my hopeless book, the matter of this breakdown. Music comes painful as a happy look. The doctors put all they had into him, and the nurses, smiling like fiends with their eternal we, took it out and put it back. But as to what was best for willful Henry, there seemed to firm no answer. And so unlocked, they set him free. Returning from his travail, he can't think of what to say. His house is all around him. So's his family. Tame doors swung upon his mystery until another day. With fried excitement, he looked across at life, wondering if he could bear it more. Wondering, in the middle of a short war with his wife, deep in the middle, in short of a war, he couldn't say whether to sing further or seal his lonely throat. Give himself up. Tomorrow is his birthday. Makes you think. The London TLS amounting so much of him he could scream. He used to march from dream to dream, but he seems to be out of ink. He seems to be out of everything again, save whiskey and cigarettes, both bad for him. He clapped both hands over both ears and resigned from the ranks of giving men. In a minute now he'll wake, distinct and grim. I'm not, he cried, what I appears. The day was dark. The day was hardly day. Forgestic Henry, with no more to say, gloomed at his big front window in saucy yard, with gentians hard to see, and brooded on his almost endless destiny. With a birthday to come, oh. Hankered he less for youth than for more time to adjust the conflicting evidence, the I'm immortal and not routine. Pascal, Spinoza, Augustine, Kafka and his tribe, living it out alone. Mary Baker Eddy's telephone. I feel a final chill. This is a cold sweat that will not leave me now. But there are secrets. Secrets I may yet, hidden in history and theology, hidden in rhyme, come on to understand. Dinch me, dark God, having smoked me out. Let all Henry's ales fail, pennies on his eyes. It was not gay, that life. Why did we come at all? Consonant to whose bidding? Perhaps God is a slob, playful, vast, rough-hewn. Perhaps God resembles the last etchings of Goya, and not Velasquez. Never Rembrandt, no. Something disturbed, ill-pleased, with a touch of paranoia, who calls for this thud of love from his creatures. Oh, perhaps God ought to be curbed. And not just on this planet, I admit, but somewhere. Our only resource is bleak denial or antipotent rage. God loves his creatures when he treats them so. His love must be a very strange thing indeed, considering its products. In sleep of a heart attack, let Henry go. The end of tennis, the beginning of the dark, the beginning of the wagon. Now at last, the effort to make him kill himself has failed. Take down then the thing to which he was nailed. I am a boat was moored on the wrong shelf. Love has wings and flies, amazed it could engineer such agony. Henry tried the world again and again, falling short of the mark. Unblock, let all griefs flow. There are more over there than over here for welcome Erie. The whole city turned out to rustle Henry home. He'd made his peace and would no further roam. He only wondered what it was about. He felt the news was near. My eyes, with which I see so easily, will become closed. My friendly heart would stop. I won't sit up. Knows me. Soon you won't like it. Ugh, worse than a pest house. And all my thought gone, and the vanish of the sun, the vanish of the moon, which Henry loved on charming nights when Henry Young was moved by delicate ladies with ripped-off panties, their mouths open to kiss. They say the coffin closes without a sound and is lowered underground. So now, all his thought dead, buried his body. What then of the adorable little Twiss and his fair lady? Will they set up a tumult in his praise? Will assistant professors become associates by working on his works? Is there more to say? Surely I've said enough. My mind has been laid open for 30 years, as when I spoke of love and either could not get it or had too much of it. Impenetrable Henry, goatish and reserved, whose heart is broken. C.D. Henry rose up shy in the world and shaved. And swung his barbells. Duded Henry up. And PA'd poor thousands of persons on topics of great moment to Henry. Ah, to those less and none. With a book of his in either hand, he is stripped down to move on. Henry is tired of winter, when we must be sad and feel by the weather had, and of spring in the city so-called. Henry likes fall. He would be prepared to live in a world of fall. But the snows and summers grieve and dream. These fierce and airy occupations and love raved away so many of poor Henry's years. It is a wonder that, within each hand, one of his own mad books and all, ancient fires for eyes, his head full, and his heart full, he's making ready to move on. Get the microphone.
Wow. Thank you, Jim. My God, for that incandescent performance. It was absolutely magisterial. Whoever tells you that literature does not matter doesn't know what he's talking about. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a little break, and then there'll be the open mic. You know, listening to him, I was very much reminded of that wonderful passage from John Gardner on moral fiction, where he mentioned that the fundamental sense, as the artist looks at life, is of glory obstructed, a glimpsed wholeness shattered. Glory obstructed, a glimpsed wholeness shattered. and yet we move on. The glory will be restored. The wholeness will be restored. That's not the end of us. We'll see it. We'll see the glory. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you very much.